Memphis is not an immigration center of crimes. Most of the people that are there that are immigrants, even if they did come into the country illegally, most of them are working legally and doing a lot of important work in Memphis, the construction industry, the tourism industry. They're necessary and needed.
So, Representative Steve Cohen, what are you saying? Are you justifying? What is it okay because they're doing work you need done? Does that make it okay to be here illegally? I guess if you're a Democrat, you can rationalize anything. Huh. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on the Chris Plant Show on this Tuesday before the massive Christmas Eve Powerball drawing. It's no winner last night, so there will be a $1.7 billion Powerball drawing tomorrow evening, Christmas Eve. I wonder how many people are going to be buying single Powerball tickets and stuffing them into Christmas stockings. Not a bad idea. Everyone will have something to talk about that's not political at Christmas Eve. What would you do? That's a fun idea. I think I'm going to do that. I am honored to be here, thrilled to be here for my friend Chris Plant. As I said, I always love sitting in with this audience, the most receptive, intelligent, and sometimes testing me audience, and I love it. You're welcome to join us, 888-630-9625. We'll get back to the phones in a little bit. I have to talk about the good news that broke this morning. Always love to share a little good news. And we have been hearing for the last week or so, this administration has been saying we are lining up the dominoes for 2026 to be a banner year for the U.S. economy. Lining them all up, trying to get the manufacturing rebuilt in this country, trying to get those automakers who are opening plants here in America, trying to get those online, attempting to get these data centers constructed. And with the data centers, you're going to need more power. So we're seeing regulations being adapted and adjusted so that people can get their power facilities working for these massive data centers. And all of these mean jobs. All of these mean good jobs in construction, in the electrical work that's involved in these, and the plumbing that's involved. These data centers need a lot of water to keep them cool. So these things take time. And we've heard from Kevin Hassett of the President's Economic Council. We've heard from the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. We've heard from the President himself. All of these things are being lined up. And much of what was in the One Big Beautiful Bill does not even kick in until next year. So let's hope that the president's got it right. Well, there's an indicator today, early this morning, just before we came on the air, there was a bit of breaking news that came out, and I think it's very exciting. I think it's very exciting, and it happened. I happened to catch it on CNN this morning because I monitor all the cables. I monitor MS-13 Now, and I monitor Newsmax and Fox and CNN. And, this was the breaking news this morning.
A report just out on a core indicator on the health of the U.S. economy. An initial reading of third quarter gross domestic product showed the economy grew at a faster pace than expected last quarter. CNN's Matt Egan joining me now. All in all, that sounds like good news.
Now, why wouldn't you say this is good news, right, Matt? She's looking for the dark lining in the silver cloud. That's what CNN does. They're looking for tell me there's a problem. This can't be good news, can it? It looks like good news, is it?
Yes, Sarah, look, the U.S. economy grew at a surprisingly strong pace last quarter. GDP, it's the broadest measure of economic activity, clocking in at 4.3% during the third quarter. Now, this was unexpected. We were bracing for a slowdown from 3.8% in the second quarter. The consensus was just for 3% in today's report, but that did not happen. We got this unexpected acceleration here. Now, I do want to note that this report was delayed by almost 2 months due to the government shutdown, and it's possible that the government shutdown caused some measurement issues here, as it has in other economic reports. So we do have to dig in here a bit, and also economists say that we could see some bigger than usual revisions to the GDP report, again, because of the government shutdown. But
so you get this great report and you have to say, well, we're not really sure about it. You're casting doubt upon it, which is kind of interesting to me. There was an anticipation of a slowdown in GDP for some reason. The naysayers have always said, and they've said this since since April 2nd. Remember Tax Liberation Day when the tariffs were announced and we were told the sky is going to fall, the economy is going to crater, everything's going to fall apart. We're all going to die. Well, that part's true. Eventually we all will. But this report of this great number in our gross domestic product, I don't know how CNN can mess with it, but yes, they can.
Well, one of the reasons is because consumer spending accelerated during the third quarter. It clocked in at 3.5%. That's up from 2.5% during the second quarter.
Now, that's huge. Literally huge. That is huge. Took up a full percentage point quarter to quarter in consumer spending. We were told everybody's sitting on their hands. All the consumers are just absolutely parking it. We were even told that the luxury goods market, that I saw a story last week about the drop in price of the Birkin bags. I've seen stories that the Ferrari sales are down, maybe because of the tariffs. Maybe that's not true.
However, we don't know who was doing this spending, and economists say that a lot of times this spending growth is being driven by those higher income households because we are in this K-shaped economy. Another factor here is trade. When you look at the recent trend in GDP, again, you can see the acceleration on the right side of the screen. But one of the other factors in this report today is trade. High tariffs have caused imports to plunge. And when that happens, you get this mechanical acceleration in GDP. And so that's what.
So what you're saying is that the reason that the GDP is increasing might be directly tied to the tariff policy that Donald Trump said is going to help America. When he came out with the policy, when Trump and his economic team said, hey, we're going to do this tariff thing, just pay attention. We think it's going to bring in a whole lot of revenue. We've been treated rather unfairly by the global communities for years and years and years, and we want a fair and equitable treatment from our trading partners. And the left all screamed, the sky is falling. He's going to isolate America. It's going to be terrible. We're all going to die. Well, as I said, we all are. And now what happened? The trade may have forced people to buy things made here in America. So our gross domestic product has increased. Gee, who could have seen that coming? I don't know, the entire Trump economic team.
Economists like to look at core GDP, which strips out government spending and trade. And on that front, it came in at 3%. So not the 4% at the headline, but still a solid number. And one last point for you, Sarah. Everyone wants to know what's going to happen in the current quarter, the fourth quarter. And economists are bracing for a slowdown in GDP due to the government shutdown.
So the government shutdown was going to have an effect, but that might be a lagging indicator. We'll see. We will see. Now, shortly after that report, Kevin O'Leary stopped by. Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank stopped by. And this is a guy, I respect him for his success, but I also find it interesting he ended up on CNN this morning talking with John Berman about this GDP number, which I think is very important. And I hope the president gets in front of the cameras later today and talks about it. Talks openly about the great GDP number that we got just before Christmas.
Stunning. Very rarely do you get a miscalculation like this. I mean, if you're the administration, you're loving this number. This
number. Kevin O'Leary saying, hey, you get a number like this, it is absolutely stunning.
It's a huge upside miss if you want to look at it that way. So we're actually waiting for the recession that never comes. This is an extraordinary situation. It's been
the recession that never comes. That's such a great line. Kevin O'Leary talking about the fact that we've been told by the media, which, as we all know, leans left. We went through what the late night talk show host numbers were already this year. 2 conservative guests to 172 liberals. The media leans very far left. And they've been telling us that the crash is just around the corner. It's just about to be here. The inflation, the recession that never comes.
In a remarkably long number of years since we've had a recession, and yet these numbers tell you it's a long way off.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing about the recession that never comes, you bring up, is, for much of the Biden administration, that's what people were bracing for, and it never came.
John Berman rushing to give the Biden administration cover. Let's not forget, inflation actually got up to 9.1% under the Biden administration. But it's great economic news this morning. Just fantastic economic news. And I do hope, even if there's a slight pause due to whatever numbers come through after we get the numbers tied to the government shutdown, which there will be in effect. Let's face it, several weeks, you can't help but see some pullback. That once 2026 kicks in, the tax benefits, the ability to write off all the investment in your company, the ability to write off the interest on a new car loan, that you'll be able to have a surge again in the economy. Wouldn't that be fantastic? I hope so. I anticipate that coming. So far, the administration's been doing very well in laying out what its plans and policies were going to achieve for us. We're already seeing it in energy, still going down. The cost of gas down again. Before I take a break here, let's grab one call. 888-630-9625, 888-630-9625. Brad is in Key West, Florida. Brad, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Mike. Thank you. First of all, you, Chris, and I, we all grew up in the North Shore of Chicago.
Okay.
And yesterday, you were talking about rats in toilets in Seattle.
Yeah.
And my mom's family is from Seattle. And it's a waterfront town. They have rats. There's no doubt about it. Second of all, I am making liberals crazy wearing my new red Trump watch.
Oh my. So you got one of those fancy Trump watches?
Yeah. I mean, it's only $500, no big deal. And it's bright red, and I get a couple of compliments, and then when I tell them it's a Trump watch, they're like, uh-oh.
Is it ahead of its time? Is that what you tell them? By the way, it's ahead of its time.
It's a beautiful watch.
Very
and
good.
I just found out that they're almost sold out. The other thing I wanted to mention, yesterday you were talking about Trump getting named with Kennedy on the national...
on the Performing Arts Center in D.C., yes.
Correct. I want to tell you and everyone that this is the last year of the Kennedy $50. So save them, because they're just going to go up in value. And also the penny, the Lincoln penny. They stopped making them 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they had a funeral. They had a funeral in D.C. Last Saturday. They actually had a funeral at the Lincoln Memorial for the penny, and the penny. I love you, Brad, but I'm not going to be telling people, hey, get that giant 5-gallon jug and fill it with pennies. You'll herniate yourself before you make any money.
Oh, wait. Your mom always had a tip, save your pennies. And this is the time to do it.
Well, I'm more interested in the Kennedy $50 because that's what I'll take a look at. I think I have a couple of those in the back of a drawer somewhere. But thank you, Brad. And the rats in Seattle. The public service announcement was since they had that atmospheric river that hit the Northwest last week, and it's now kind of hitting L.A. this week. They had some plumbing issues, and rats were swimming up in through the toilets. So the city was telling people, just flush them back down. Don't worry about it. I'm sorry? What? No, I don't like the rats swimming up through the toilet. Not a good thing. Thank you, Brad. Enjoy Key West. I got to take a break. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It was the day before Christmas. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. I think this was the day, back in the day, that the actual poem that opens up with "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," I think this was the day it was actually published back in 1823. Yes, A Visit from St. Nicholas, published on this date in 1923, the day before Christmas. Christmas Eve, as my friends like to say. It's also the day in 1975 that President Gerald R. Ford signed the Metric Conversion Act, which, if memory serves me correctly, we were all supposed to be on the metric system by now. And I don't think anybody really is, except for when you buy a soda, you can see the 1 liter bottles and the 2 liter bottles. Or if you travel to Canada and buy gasoline, I think you can buy imperial gallons, and some places sell liters at the pumps. It's just kind of weird. We never went full metric. You never go full metric. Even though Schoolhouse Rock tried to come up with a way for us to learn the conversion. A liter, it's a little more than a quart or something like that. I still don't get it. I'm still stuck in a non-metric world, and I think most of you are too. We have much to get to today. Yesterday, out of nowhere, a bolt from the blue, a blast from the past, if you will, Hunter Biden appeared. A new interview from Hunter Biden, which is just so bizarre because it contradicts things he told us. And I wonder why. I'm trying to figure out why. I'll share some of the clips with you, and we'll break it down. We'll get into it and see if there's any rational explanation behind it. I still don't understand. And Regis put out a Christmas album in 2005. We may have to have fun with that. Just a little bit of fun. After all, it is the holidays. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. Join us, 888-630-9625. As I said, it's the Chris Plant Show. It is the Chris Plant Show, and it is also the Tuesday before Christmas. It's almost Christmas, just about here. Got to adjust my microphone, excuse me. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant. We got good news this morning. Really good news on the economy this morning. The gross domestic product, an indication of how we're doing overall, was a lot higher than anticipated. And that's good. That's very good. You combine that with the inflation data that we got last week, that inflation dropped, anticipated to be at 3%, was down to 2.7%, still not where we want it to be. And the price of oil continues to drop, which means the price of gas is dropping, unless, of course, you're in California, which, God, why would you be in California? I know it's beautiful. I know there's great, beautiful places in California. And there's great wine that comes out of California, all kinds of things you can say. You can make the case for California, and then you look at who's running it. And you say, well, ooh, how do we let that happen? Seriously, you look at the cost of gasoline, you look at the money that's being spent, and now you see a slight awakening in some parts of California. People going, wait, we're giving who what? I don't know. It might be too late for them. But the rest of the country has hope, except, well, there is a little problem in Illinois. We know with Governor Pritzker, and in Chicago with Mayor Johnson, there are some issues. There's some big problems, economic problems. I was looking at a breakdown of what's going on in Chicago economically, and it's stunning in a couple of spots to look at the numbers and how the losses are starting to pile up. How long before there is a straw that breaks the proverbial camel's back as it relates to Chicago, especially as it relates to businesses leaving the state? I saw a report and I said, can this be true? Can this really be true? I'll give you a little sample of the start of this report on just one industry, one big company that the city of Chicago wishes it still had, wishes they would come back. But, Governor Pritzker and the policies, the Democrats, not exactly welcoming.
Boeing just sold its Chicago headquarters for $22 million. They bought that building for $165 million 20 years ago. That's an 87% loss on a 36-story tower along the Chicago River.
Think about that. Waterfront property almost never goes down in value. Why would that happen? Why does that even exist? How could that be allowed to happen? This was all part of the plan to revitalize Chicago when Boeing was courted. They relocated their headquarters to Arlington, Virginia. We hear maybe to be closer to the big federal clients like the Pentagon. But you think about since the summer of 2022, Caterpillar goes to Texas, Citadel goes to Miami, Boeing leaves. When are these blue run states going to wake up? I don't know. Will it be too late? Will they have to get completely bottomed out before they return to the greatness that was there before? Look how long it took for Detroit. And is Detroit even fully back? In the 60s, when it was still run by Republicans in the early part of the 60s, Detroit was one of the great cities in the world, producing incredible cars, producing great jobs, had terrific schools. And what happened? Democrats. I think that's fair to say. But more on that later. I mentioned the story that surprised me yesterday. This was really kind of stunning. Hunter Biden has suddenly reappeared. I was talking to a friend of mine about Hunter Biden. I have a friend who's an artist, really just makes his living doing beautiful paintings. He's a great painter. And no, I don't think you probably know him. His name's Peter Sculthorpe, but he's a brilliant painter. We were talking about it. I said, "What do you have any thought on Hunter Biden's art? Is he a legitimate artist?" And he said, "Well, I don't know anyone who's ever seen his artwork." And I think we've seen a couple of shots of the straw blown paintings. I couldn't say if I saw something, if it was a Hunter Biden masterpiece, using the Chris Plant approved air quotes with my fingers, or if it was something a kid did. Just wondering. But so where are all those Hunter Biden paintings that we were told were selling for tens of thousands of dollars? Where are they? And who bought them? Will we ever know? But maybe Hunter's making a comeback. Maybe Hunter Biden is plotting because he senses what so many in the Democrat Party sense, and that is lack of leadership. Usually the last person to lead the party would be considered the titular head, whether it was the outgoing president or the last candidate for the party. So in this case, you would have either Kamala Harris or Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. Joe Biden, we all know where that situation is. Doesn't exactly seem to have all the dots on his dice, as they say. And Kamala Harris, she lost and lost bigly, and yet she's still out there pushing the book and trying to make it sound like she's going to be a viable candidate in 2028. But does anyone believe that? And who else would it be? Is it AOC? Is it Gavin Newsom? So there appears to be a void, a vacuum, a spot at the... Could it be that Hunter Biden is going to be a candidate? I don't know. He appeared on the Sean Ryan show, and it's a lengthy piece of tape. But we do have a couple of clips to share with you that I think bear examining. Hunter Biden on the show, and the surprising story here is Hunter sounds like a lot of us when it comes to illegal immigrants.
We don't want immigrants that are coming here illegally draining us of resources and also and being prioritized above people that are actual literal heroes that are coming home that are still recovering from 20 years of endless war, or anybody else in our society.
I'm sitting here thinking it's hard to disagree with somebody who says we want to prioritize Americans over people here illegally. Where did that come from? Where was that guy? Is this the case similar to what we're seeing with John Fetterman? That after their brain starts recovering, that rational thought becomes part of their daily life? Isn't that interesting? What an interesting thought. Hunter also talked about joining the board of Burisma. Remember, he was paid $83,000 a month, I think it was, whatever the price was. It was over $1 million a year to be on the board of this oil company that he never went to a board meeting. He didn't have to go to Burisma, didn't have to be there. He could just do it from whatever hotel room he was in here in America or wherever he was. But they discussed whether or not it was a good idea for Hunter Biden to join the board of Burisma.
Was it a mistake to go on the board? Yeah. Yeah, it was absolutely a mistake, not because of anything that I did that I am embarrassed about or in any way whatsoever feel conflicted about as it relates to what I did for Burisma, but because of the political position that put us all in. They used that as the toe in the door to be able to call my family the Biden crime family without any evidence.
Bank records, not evidence, no evidence. I don't think you want to reopen that door, Hunter. I'm just saying. The Biden crime family, it was not an excuse to call you the Biden crime family. It was clarity to call you the Biden crime family. We still haven't gotten answers to all of those connections. Remember Tony Bobulinski? Will we ever know? And then, obviously, Hunter still going to support his dad. And you expect him. You expect him to support his dad, as any good son should. Hunter went off a little bit on George Clooney and the guys from Pod Save America.
I really went off on George Clooney, and I really went off on the Pod Save America guys. And the reason I did is because I think they're a bunch of arrogant fucks. I do. I think that Jake Tapper is a pompous, arrogant fuck. But you know what? I think they love this country. I don't think that they're bad people. I think they're just arrogant
So you like dropping the F-bomb, do you? I can't say I disagree with him on Jake Tapper's pomposity and arrogance. I don't know. I would hope they would love this country. I would hope that somebody like George Clooney and Jake Tapper, who've been the recipients of great fortune because of America, I would hope they would love this country. But they also stand on a very different political turf than I do. Now, I got to go back and get the exact publishing date on Miranda Devine's book, The Laptop from Hell. One of the great books of a couple summers ago. It really breaks down the Hunter Biden laptop story, and I think with a brilliant timeline. And Miranda Devine is a great writer. She tells the story very well. Miranda Devine, I'm guessing, would disagree with Hunter Biden in this interview with Sean Ryan, because Hunter Biden is now trying to tell us that there was no laptop. There never was a laptop.
There is no laptop.
There was no laptop.
I have no recollection whatsoever of ever dropping off a laptop to John Paul McIsaac. He says he goes to repair the laptop, but then he starts to read the files. And he reads a file, and he sees files about Burisma. And he says the only thing that he can think of doing is calling Rudy Giuliani. He's a laptop repair shop owner in Wilmington, Delaware, whose store is 3.5 miles at most from where everybody knows my parents live. So if he had a laptop that he wanted to return, he thinks that the best thing to do is call Rudy Giuliani's lawyer, Bob Costello, and give it to my sworn enemy.
But there was no laptop, right?
They cobbled together all of this digital material that had been stolen from phones, that had been taken from the dark web, and they made it out to be this thing. Then the story doesn't become about the laptop at all, because there's nothing in the laptop other than a record of me being a degenerate at the worst moment in my life, smoking, doing drugs, doing whatever.
Yeah, I wonder why this is coming up now. I really do. But for Hunter Biden to say that there never was a laptop, that it was it the CIA that was trying to set up the Biden family? Is that what you're telling us? So maybe Hunter now, but let's do the extrapolation here. Hunter believes in the swamp? Is he believing in the deep state and the swamp? I got to know. The reality is Hunter Biden saying there never was a laptop is in direct conflict with his own actions of March of 2023 when he sued the computer repairman for invasion of privacy over the laptop that he now says never existed. So you need to make up your mind, Hunter Biden. You really do. But what is he doing? Why is this coming out right now? This is what I would like to know. Is this Hunter Biden attempting to reestablish himself somewhere with a career? Could it be politics? As a guy who lives in the state of Delaware, you know, they have a pecking order. They have a lineup where they just rotate him through all of the positions. He might be a guy who's going to run for governor. Who knows? We'll find out. What do you think? 888-630-96... yes, 888-630-9625. I couldn't read my own handwriting. 888-630-9625. We'll talk about that and other things. For example, Margot is calling from Illinois. Hello, Margot. Welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking my call. I always enjoy it when you're on.
Thank you.
You asked a question. Maybe it was rhetorical about what would turn Illinois red. Okay, here it goes. We need to expunge all the voting rolls, all of them. Then they need to send in the National Guard from another state to re-register everybody with ID. Then everybody has to vote on the same day in their precinct with ID. That is what we need here, and that would turn Illinois red, because I firmly believe, just from looking at yard signs, I know there's more of us than there is of them, but we're never going to get there without the cleanup that has to happen. The dead.
Well, one of the things. Well, I think you've identified a very important thing. You know, if the dead stop voting in Chicago alone, it's going to make a big difference. But the reality is the state of Illinois is much like other states. For example, the state of Delaware. The very southern end, which is all farmland and a lot of working people, is what they call lower, slower Delaware. Couldn't be any redder. But where the population is in the north is so blue, they overwhelm the rest of the state. Same with Virginia. But it's an interesting question. Are you near Chicago, where you live?
I live in DuPage County. Now, in DuPage County, my mom was election judge in the 60s. They had 52 registered Democrats. It was the most Republican county in the nation. Now we send the likes of Sean Casten to Washington. Can you believe it? But I have seen what they do is they move in people like to Wheaton and Glen Oak. They move in people temporarily for that month to vote. They actually do that. People will move in for a month and then they move out and they vote.
If we had
any extreme.
If we zero-based the voter rolls and redid it and made everybody vote with IDs on the same day and paper ballots, I think life would change. It's a great idea. Thank you for doing it. If I may, because I have to take a break here, pick up the Daily Herald today. The cover story on Tuesday, December 23rd's Daily Herald, the very top cover story is about my little niece, Ashley, and her fight to get a hold of and retain access to medical marijuana. It's a great story. You should check it out. It's Mike Opelka in for Chris Plant on The Chris Plant Show. It is The Chris Plant Show. Merry Christmas to you and yours. Hope your Hanukkah was great. We are now fully engaged in the Christmas season. Chris is on holiday. It's Mike Opelka sitting in for my friend. And I can't believe I've run through this hour so quickly. We have so much more to get to. Let me grab one quick call here because we were just talking about it. Mike is in Germantown, Maryland. Mike, welcome to the Chris Plant Show.
Hello, how are you? Happy holidays.
Happy Merry Christmas to you, sir.
I was just thinking about the paintings. The art world, that's a way to launder money. You have a painting, it's a no-name artist, a ghost artist, and you hang it on the wall and you say it's a $10,000 painting, and then a few days later you take it down and you mark it as sold in your book, and you write down that you earned $10,000 from the painting that you sold. And it's all your own money.
So you're saying that all of these Hunter Biden paintings, which may or may not have been sold to people who were regularly donors to the Biden and the Democrats, well, maybe that was a giant money laundering scam. Isn't that interesting? Yeah, they weren't really art. Thank you very much for that, Mike. Appreciate it. Opelka in for Plant.